Alright, so we need to take this radical expression here and simplify it. So simplify it and also rationalize the denominator. So there's a couple different ways you could go about this. I'm going to start off by writing it like this. So do 7 times the square root of 250 x squared b over the square root of 100 times 125 times x times b cubed. Okay, now the reason why I'm doing that, just easier, it's just kind of everything's all lined up, and when you multiply radicals with the same index, and all these have the same index, they're all like square roots because there's no numbers inside the radical part. We can do the multiplication under the radical first. And division works that way too. So what I could do is I could also like erase these radicals here and then write it as one big radical. So sort of like this. So like when you take, so in other words, like the square root of a over the square root of b is equal to the square root of a over b. I could divide these first before I take the square root. And previously I used this rule: the square root of a times b is equal to the square root of a times b. Or the square root of a times square root of b is equal to the product, the square root of the product of those two. Alright, so what that allows me to do now is allows me to simplify this fraction like inside the radical. So like 250 over 100, or actually 250 over 175, sorry, 250 over 125 is going to be 2. So that's going to be like 2 over 1. And then like this 100 is going to stay there. And then this like this x squared over x is going to become just an x. And this b over b cubed is going to be just a b squared. Okay, so then I could simplify that further by doing like 7 times like the square root of 1/50th, because that's 2 over 100, and then x over b squared. Okay, and now I could rewrite it like this, like 7 times the square root of x, because 1 times x is just x, over the square root of 50b squared. Alright, so we're getting closer to simplifying it, but we have a radical in the denominator, so we can get rid of that by first rewriting the denominator like this. So let's cut that part off. 7 root x, and then the square root of 50, that's 25 times 2, and 25 is 5 times 5, so that's going to be 5 root 2, and because the square root of b squared is b, so it's going to be 5b root 2. Now, so pretty much I did the square root of 50 times the square root of b squared, and then the square root of b squared is b, but I also have to put absolute values there because I took an even root of a variable that came out with an odd exponent. So last but not least is I got to get rid of that radical 2 in the denominator. So I'm going to give myself some room. And the way I'm going to get rid of the radical 2 is to multiply the numerator and the denominator by root 2. So then that gives me 7 root 2x by multiplying like these together over 5 square root of absolute value of b times 2, because this becomes square root of 4, which simplifies to 2. And then now we can multiply the 5 and the 2 together and just write it like this. So 7 root 2x over 10 times the absolute value of b. And that's the simplest way you can write that original expression.